Hi, everybody. I'm here with Mike Vernon from the surf band Three Balls of Fire. How are you, Mike?
I'm just fine, Ryan. Good morning from San Marcos, Texas.
It's so good to have you on, and I'll tell you why. I luckily found your band through Hunter King from Storm Surge of Reverb.
Uh,
He put out a list of all the releases from 2022, and I'd like you to tell me what is so special about that release because I was very lucky to find out.
hmm, that's cool. Well, it's special for me because it's the first Three Balls of Fire recording since 2013. We had a record that came out called Somewhere on the Deep Blue Pacific. So that's almost 10 years. Before that, we put out records every few, couple, 2, 3 years, whatever, dating back to our first recording in 1987. So that was a long time. But in between then, it's not like I wasn't doing anything. I had another band. I was out in Los Angeles for a while, had a band called the M Squad with a very cool band doing crime jazz.
Oh
And we
wow.
put out a record with on Nelson Bragg from Brian Wilson Band on his label.
Oh wow.
I also put out my first and only solo album called Guitars After Dark, Vernon Mike Vernon. So that all that's on our website. So if anybody's interested about any of this stuff, three with the number three ballsoffire.com has all the gigs that I do and all our records and all information you want to know and don't want to know is all there.
Well, I'll put a link to threeballsoffire.com in the description, as well as the Bandcamp page, which has quite a number of releases on there. Um,
Sure.
one
Okay.
thing one thing I was surprised at was the inclusion of Noki Edwards.
Well, well, you're right. And that last, you were asking about the last record. Actually, we released two CDs at the same time. One was a studio CD, which is called Burnin' and Churnin', I think. Yeah. And then the other one is Three Balls of Fire Live. And that's with Noki Edwards of the Ventures, George Tomsko of the Fireballs, and Jerry Cole of the Wrecking Crew. I toured with all three of those guys. Also toured with Link Ray and played with Davey Allen and the Arrows. Did some touring around California. So I got to play with some great of the instrumental people in the instrumental world, rock and roll world.
Yeah.
Very fortunate. So that recording with Noki, so that record, Three Balls of Fire Live's got 5 songs by each Noki, George, and Jerry. And the Noki stuff is, well, when he toured with us in Texas, I told him, I said, I don't want to just do the Walk Don't Run, Pipeline, Y50. I want to dig deep into the catalog, which we did. And so
Slaughter on 10th Avenue.
we did Slaughter on 10th Avenue. Yeah. And so we toured around Texas and had a song list of a set list, 90-minute set list of 22 songs, 23, something like that. So we only got to pick 5 for this. I had to make room for everybody. We got a whole lot more. Maybe one of these days we'll find a way to release that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Give me some highlighted memories that you have from your extensive career. What are some of the things that really stuck out for you?
Well, you know, I guess when I first started in Arlington, Texas, 1969, I was in 10th grade. Um, Getting to play in a band, the guys down the street, I always heard them rehearsing. I was 15 years old and said, Dad, I need a guitar. I always played my dad's old shit kicking K country guitar. My dad was a musician also, but I knew these guys needed a bass player. So I said, let's go get a bass. So we took me down to the music store. I bought a bass. I just picked it up and started playing it. Got pretty good pretty quick, I guess. And I heard those guys needed a bass player, knocked on their door. I said, oh, we'll think about it. I was a little younger than they were, a little less experienced. The day they came over a few weeks later, hey, you're in the band. That's like the biggest, that's almost like the biggest thrill of my life. I was so excited. So that was great. And then another highlight when I was 23, I met the guys in Quicksilver Messenger Service, a guy named Gary Duncan, one of the guitar players, at a show in Dallas. Just got to meet him afterwards and said, hey, you guys ever need a guitar or bass player? Let me know. And he goes, actually, we're going to need a bass player. Gave me his phone number. I ended up out in San Francisco in 78 and got to hang out with those guys, did some rehearsing. And, but that was the end of their Capitol era, Capitol Records. And so Capitol didn't give them any more money. So that kind of folded up for me. But that was a really big thrill getting to play with them because they were quite a bit older than me and they were very nice to me. And they didn't have to be, I guess. Some punk from Texas coming in. I'm sure I just fell off the turnip truck. Hey, what's going on? I'll play. But that was a lot of fun. And
That's
then
how you
getting,
get in. That's how you get in. You're like, hey, I'll do
yeah,
it.
yeah, I'll do it. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. And so, things like that and getting to having the opportunities to play with uh, Link Ray, Noki, Jerry Cole, George Tomsko is a very dear friend of mine. Jerry was also. Me and Noki were good buddies. Link Ray was just sweetest guy ever. Getting to play with people like that just was huge thrill for me. And I got to tour England with George Tomsko, and so that was a big thrill playing London and Cavern Club in Liverpool.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So those
How was
were,
that?
huh?
How was that?
Well, it was very groovy. I mean, of course, probably the original Cavern, they filled it in with cement.
Oh.
So the right 3 feet over, they made another cavern. You go down in it. They have the same stage, the wood from the same stage. That's what they said, and all the stuff. They moved it over. No, they had saved it, and then they redid it. So that was a long time ago. They got rid of the original cavern a long time ago. But it's the Cavern Club, so hey, we got to play. Like I said, I played the Cavern Club.
Yeah, we're totally, man. So in
Yeah.
I want to ask you a few series of questions about um time and your history. Being an instrumental band in the 70s and 80s, um, how did the 90s explosion feel for you as a musician in surf music?
How did the what explosion? I'm sorry.
The 90s surf explosion.
Oh, well, that's a good question. Interesting how all that kind of worked out. Um, Now, in the 70s, I just played in Texas rock and roll bands. When you grow up in Texas, you play rock and roll, country and western,
Right, right.
rhythm and blues. I played it all, But most of the stuff I played, it was cool stuff, And in the late 70s is when I started going towards the instrumental. By 1981, I went straight, almost full tilt instrumental. I'm gonna tell you, in those days, it happened every gig. Hey, where's your singer? You need a singer? I sing. Can I get up and sing? Because you need one. Oh, I know you guys are short tonight. No, this is what we do. Oh, okay. Now, I'm not saying people didn't like it, but it was much harder to book when you would say, well, what do you do? Well, it's like Dick Dale and the Ventures. Who? Or really? What is that? So that was very difficult. And I moved to Austin from the Dallas Fort Worth area, Arlington, in 1985. And what was going on in Austin was a big root scene. You had the Fabulous Thunderbirds were making waves. Stevie Ray Vaughan, of course, same age as me, grew up in the Dallas Fort Worth area. Um, the Tailgaters, the Leroy Brothers. I could go on and on and on. So there was a big root scene going. So I'm one of the main reasons I moved down there. It was a better music scene, of course, but I knew that if this would people there might would accept what I do more than Dallas Fort Worth, where it was more, you know, more straight laced kind of thing. And that's true, and that is what happened. I got down to Austin, but it was still very difficult. And but we were able to get through it. We played the good clubs, but it was still, you know, what it was. And then a thing called Pulp Fiction happened. And before Pulp Fiction, there's a guy, he's no longer doing it, but the website's still up, called Reverb Central. And he had he reviewed all the surf records. And he also had a radio show out there in the San Francisco area. Phil Dirt was his call name. Phil reviewed every instrumental surf, mainly surf, but instrumental stuff with a little reverb. He reviewed after Dick Dale. I mean, after Pulp Fiction and Miser Lou, and all of a sudden there were just surf bands coming out of the woodwork. It got to the point by 2000 or so in there, he couldn't keep up with it anymore. He retired at some point by 2005. Yeah, I think he was ready to do it anyway, but it got to be there was just so many people doing it. So now, so by I would say by 2000, by that point, it was and let's not forget Low Straight Jackets. I should mention them
Yeah.
because they really, and I would say they're the number one really surf instrumental band in the world. You know, they really got a lot of attention on that kind of music because they were so good at it. Of course, they had the shtick with the masks, but behind the mask was a great band.
Yeah.
And they were funny and they were entertaining, and they picked out the great songs, and they were great songwriters. Danny and all the guys that are in that band. So Eddie Angel, my buddy uh, Pete Curry, who's played with in my band out in LA, also
Greg.
great drummer. He was bass player for Los Traders. He's a great guitar player, bass player, and drummer. Anyway, so all that combined, it's much easier now. I can't remember the last time anybody asked me if I needed a singer, you know. And when we book stuff, it's just so much easier now. Now that I'm about to die and I'm senior
Ah.
citizen, it's all good, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
So as far as I don't like to speak in terms of what you just said, but what do you hope your legacy is for your music?
well, let me say one thing too. The hardcore surf people don't really consider me surf in that regard. I'm more of an instrumental guy that does, of course, I know all the surf tunes, and all that. But I'm so I'm more like Low Straight Jackets. Really, are more of an instrumental band than surf band, if you think about it. I look at myself more in that league. But so labels, it's funny with labels. Depends on who's saying it and where they're coming from. Excuse me. But I think when you ask me what would I like to be remembered for, if there was anything, I think a lot of people they play guitar or whatever instrument, and the song is only a vehicle for them to play guitar. And so that's where you get a lot of these guys coming in writing. Here's an original. It's just pipeline backwards. It's just they're just something so they can play guitar too. I my feeling is that the song is what it's all about. The guitar should serve the song, not the song serving the guitar. So I think, without naming any names, and there's a lot of great surf bands out there. There's also a lot of people that just kind of, it's really about shredding. They almost might as well be in a heavy metal band, and they're, and then, where's the song? Well, there is no song. It's just riffs. So I'd like to be remembered as a songwriter because I feel like I've been blessed with a talent to write good songs, and I don't put any records out with bad songs because I wouldn't do that. Now, and I'm not saying that bragging. I mean, that's just the way I feel about it. It's up to other people how they judge all that. So I hope I'm remembered as an all around musician, though, guitar player, songwriter, band leader. Um, but when we're gone, and that we'll see if we're even remembered. There's a lot of guys. When I started playing, it was a big deal in '69 to be in a band. We were the only band at my high school, so we played all the dances. And at that other high school, there was one band there. There were two bands in town in Arlington. Dallas had, they had 15, but I mean, now there's 10 million bands. So when you ask, what are you going to be remembered for? Well, quite frankly, I don't know. There's so many people doing it and so many really great people. I see these videos of 9-year-old kid just, playing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord Almighty. I mean, there's just some people that are really good. And also, I'm also a classical guitarist. I play Spanish guitar. I
Flamenco?
study. It's not really flamenco, it's Spanish guitar. There's a difference. Flamenco is a religion. That's gypsy religion, but Spanish guitar is from flamenco. It's just not quite as improvisational, I guess. I see these kids are 8 years old, play better than I ever dreamed of. So there's just some incredible people out there. So any of us that might be remembered, I don't know. I don't know why anybody would. There's so many other people coming up. So I'm glad to be. I'm glad I was here, and I'm glad to do what I do. And we'll see what the good Lord has for the future.
That's great. What are your plans coming up? You had that release last year. Is there anything that you're looking to do in 2023?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, here in San Marcos, there's a tiki bar I discovered, and I just walked in. Hadn't been open very long, and the guy goes, "Hey, I know you." I said, "Oh yeah, you got that surf band. He goes, you ought to come down here and play." And I said, "Well, you know what? Since it's a tiki bar, a little lower volume, why don't I kind of do something a little different? I mean, I'll do some of the surf stuff, but some more exotica kind of music." So I have a band called the Mid Centurions, and we play every Thursday here in San Marcos. Have been now for about 7 months, and we're going to keep doing that for a while, or
Awesome.
hopefully for a long time. And the Mid Centurions do, we do some Martin Denny stuff, and we do a lot of the bossa nova things like Wave Desfinato, the Jobim, and then we do some of the surf music too, and several originals and some just different things. So I got that going, and then the Three Balls of Fire. We're right now working on going to Atlanta in September for a thing called the Southern Surf Stomp.
Yes, I've heard of it.
We're going to play that, and then from there we're going up the East Coast, and we're going to play the South area, and then up DC, Philly, and hopefully up
I'm in
into.
Philly.
Oh, my bass player is Dave Provost. Dave Provost just moved to Philly about a year ago because his wife got a job out there. But Dave Provost was in LA, played with Carla Olson and Davey Allen the Arrows, a very well known bass player out there, very well respected. He's in Philly, so he's working on the East Coast dates, negotiating with some people, I believe. And so we're going to play in Philly. So I'll let you know.
Yeah, would you send me an email when you
Of
when you
course.
get that?
I'll be glad to.
I'll put in for the date at work, and then I could
All
shoot
right.
stuff.
Yeah,
shoot some.
that'll be early October. The
Oh,
surf stop is September 30th. So that following week, somewhere in there, we'll be up in Philadelphia.
is Chad and Sherry still doing that?
Yeah,
Oh, good, good.
yeah. I'm the people we're negotiating with or somebody else. I don't, but yeah, Chad, I believe from the Mystery Men.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're all doing it. Yeah, it's gonna be great. It'll be our first time. But I played in New York and I played in Boston and Connecticut and up there, but I've never played Atlanta, at least with this band,
Great
Three Balls.
music scene.
Oh yeah, and never played in DC, and they're looking forward to that. Never played in Philly, so we'll hang out, right?
Yeah, I would love to come down and meet you guys.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely stay in touch.
Oh, please. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
So I want to say 3ballsofire.com in the description, as well as 3balls of fire Bandcamp page where you can sample the music and hopefully support the band by purchasing it. Underneath that in the description, there's some Pie Records merch and tons of surf music resources. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing the history of your career. It's really great to know you and know you'll be coming out to Philly, so maybe I'll get a chance to chat with you and shake your hand.
I look forward to that, Ryan. Thank you. Thanks for having me.